Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Berge and I'm your host. If you're not familiar with my work or would like to learn more about it, head on over to AIM International, the first tennis lab of its kind worldwide that is centered on delivering top 10 tennis rankings and is 100% backed by science. This season we're embarking on something new, something fresh, what I've been holding back. Changeover segments will deliver how to beat the best players in the world or how the best players in the world are winning with top 10 to Grand Slam differences. If you want more, that's where my 14 books come into play. So be sure to dive into them and become familiar with AMA International and the 190 plus episodes we have now to date. So look, it's a new frontier and I'm no longer holding back. So buckle in and enjoy the ride. Welcome to another edition of Beyond Top Tennis. Look, if you've been with us for some time now, thank you so much. You'll notice our last couple of episodes, I've really stripped back a bit of a raw edition, if you like. We're toying with, I will say, for those of you who are new, welcome. I would encourage you to track back to those early episodes, as always. But we have done video format for some time now. I probably for the last 12 months, maybe 18 months. I'm not too sure, but I think we have at least maybe we've got around 90, 100 episodes thereabouts. And because of, I guess, such the heavy lifting and also the condensed episodes, I'm going to experiment with more of that raw format coming to you, I guess almost unedited, essentially, peeling everything back. So we're removing a video. I'm sure it will come back, but just with toying with different formats at this stage. So as always, and with each episode, feedback is always welcome. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. I know that we have a number of listeners that purely listen to audio only, but there are some potentially who are also listening to the or watching the video format. So if you are one or the other, please let me know your thoughts. I would very much appreciate that. So it can help us better frame, format, edit even those shows, but also the raw format, how you like that, rather than, I guess, a more distinct intro, outro that was there in, I guess, earlier episodes. We tried earlier this season, the YouTube live format as well, thoughts on that, and just peeling it back again. So we've just been toying with a few different formats so far this season, which I can't believe we're already, we're nearing the last or the end of the first quarter, if you like, and it's the March swing, which is equally crazy as well to think the Australian Open is now a good, well, almost 2 months behind us. All right, so today's episode, we do have rankings update. So as always, WTA Tour first, followed by the ATP Tour. But look, on the WTA Tour, we've got Merida and Austin to go over. ATP Tour, we've got the 1,000 event, right? So Dubai, followed by the 500 in Mexico. Obviously, previous episode was jam-packed, or we had those 1,000 events on the WTA Tour. This is the first 1,000 I believe the ATP Tour has had since the Australian Open. Obviously, previous episodes was Dubai and Qatar, respectively, on the WTA Tour. So they had back-to-back. So this week is more of a lull for them, the smaller tier events. Bit of a bigger week for the ATP Tour. I'm not too sure why I spoke about this, I think, in the last episode when it comes to periodization, etc. Both tours have a jam-packed March, back-to-back 1,000 events. Indian Wells, followed by Miami. It makes sense to have the bigger events, the few weeks prior, not back to back, so to speak. But that's a conversation, I think, well, I'd say for another day, but I do have episodes on periodization, organizing your training, etc. With that, last year's release, so the 2025 release, My Tennis Workbook, and then the 2024 release, My Tennis Black Book, dives into that. So paints, I'll say, a better picture for you, those of you who are not familiar. Plus, we have so much information available on AIM International as well. Those of you who are wondering what's coming out this season, because, oh my goodness, that's where I have shared previously that fictional release, which has been pulling me, and why you've seen some of those episodes not released, I'll say, at the same day every week consistently. I'll say over the last 6 months-ish, purely because I have been pulled there and we've been juggling the two. But as promised, that I am catching up to speed and making sure I am giving you that wrap. Look, last episode as well, we did have those changeover segments. We don't necessarily have the specifics on this week's episode. So I really want to, I think, draw attention to how the best players in the world are winning. And one of, I think, the biggest aspects to address in this week's episode is what the best players are doing to win at this stage very early on. It comes down to what I just referred to in periodization, is that they take that additional rest. So you would have noticed the absence last week of Swiatek and Sabalenka, for example, from Dubai, which you typically very rarely see. Look, Djokovic has been doing for some time now. Sinner and Alcaraz have had a bit of a break as well. And that's what it comes down to. However, the catch there is players, and I've spoken about this a lot, written about this a lot, players who are obviously chasing those points, who need those points to get their ranking up, to obviously get automatic entry into those 1,000 events, for example, get more comfortable into those 500 events, etc., etc. They need to keep playing those tournaments to get those points. When you reach the top, you're in a position to pay those penalties and you can take more time off. So it doesn't exactly, or the tours don't really work for the players, unfortunately, nor do the schedules. We had a lot of conversations, I think, on this about last season, so I won't dive into it. But it is, I will say, a lot to balance. Also, I think it's really important to note that's why we do see more players coming down with injuries, because they don't have that adequate rest periods. Although there's also an equal argument about the management of their training, really optimizing the periodization, the chart work, etc. involved in that. And when it is not managed really minutely to that T, that's where obviously those discrepancies, the niggles will come into play, and why players do end up then sidelined. All right, that's enough from there. Let's dive in. WTA Tour, kicking things off straight away with the Merida. It is a 500 event, so it's not necessarily smaller, but smaller than the 1,000. But it is still a very big event. But we're not seeing, I will say, every top 10 player participating this week, because they are preparing for the March swing, and we see that actually not on both tours, ironically, purely because ATP has that 1,000 event, but we are seeing it this week on the WTA Tour because of the 500 and 250 events respectively. All right, Merida, number 1 seed Paolini, second seed was Navarro for perspective. All right, by first round, Paolini. Hon upset Zarazua first round. That is an upset. Very good win for Priscilla Hon. 3 sets, 6-2, 2-6, 6-4. Bulta, very good win over her dad, Maia. Recall, Bulta, she's clawing her way back in the rankings, was outside the top 100. This time last year, though, I think was inside the top 30. Had Dad Mayer about I'll say 18 months ago to be safe, but a bit over a year ago was inside the top 10. Osorio over to Jen, upset there 4-3, Lee with a bye. Sonmez over Bray. Sonmez has been having a good season so far, 2-0. Bucsa over Vekic, 3-2. We saw last week how Vekic is just holding on inside the top 100. I don't think she's regressed outside the top 100 since maybe entering it, similar to Azarenka, where we know she's slipped outside the top 100, for example, unfortunately. Would love to see her back. Starsuk has upset Yastremska, the 5th seed, 4-3. Buzez Maniero, good win there over Watson. Watson, I'm not too sure if she got a wild card there, but we don't see her too frequently, but still great to see her in the first round. That was 3-1. Frech over Timofeeva, 4-6. Arango over Potapova, I'm calling that one an upset, 7-6, 6-2. Buskova with a bye. Lynette over Maria, 6-3. Jimenez Castina over Putintseva, upset as well, 6-4, 1-6, 6-4. Zhang over Lechemko, 2-4. 4, and Navarro with a bye. Look, as always, I understand I do pronounce some names incorrectly, so I do apologize. I do try my best. There is occasionally that slip of the tongue. All right, on to second round, which is essentially the round of 16 when we're looking at it. So the seeds are in action. Paolini, very good win over Hon, nice and clean, 6-love, 6-2. Bucsa over Osorio, 6-3. Osorio had to retire in that second set. Sonmez's upset lead, 3-6, 7-6, 6-4. Well done to Sonmez there. Bucsa over Stasuk, 7-6, 6-3. Frech over Bozes-Miniero. That, look, it's an upset on paper, absolutely, as far as seeds are concerned. But let's remember, Frech has been ranked, I'm pretty sure, inside the top 30, has only recently, I'll say, regressed late last season, I think it was, thereabouts. So still that would have been a tightly contested match. Bozes-Miniero has been, I will say, peaking, reached that new baseline in the last 6 months or so. But it does, I'm not that surprised on paper to see, or the result there with Frech with that convincing win. Buskova over Arango, 2-6, 6-1, 2-love. Then Arango had to retire, which is unfortunate. Arango is an up-and-comer Colombian. Been playing some really good tennis, making her way onto the scene the last probably like 18 months, 2 years now. Buskova, however, she's been on the radar the last 6 months. I really like how she's been playing. Obviously, she's not a teenager. She's peaking late in her career. But typically we do see players peaking late, whereas more so the anomalies are the ones that peak early as the teenagers. Remembering that not every player will peak as a teenager, and there's a lot of weight, I think, as far as pressure is concerned, to carry on your shoulders from that perspective. As far as the science or data is concerned, peaking later in your career is actually, I will say, being very careful here, healthier for obviously longevity, not pushing too much pressure on the body. When you do peak early, there's a lot of maintenance involved there, and you need to be very careful. Although obviously the earlier you peak, the better as far as rankings, results, and everything to come is concerned. Although it is not the golden rule, so to say, as in you do not have to peak when you're 18, 19, 20 years old to say it's a precedent for a top 20, top 10 result. There is zero correlation from that perspective is where I'm getting at. All right, Jimenez Kazakina, she's upset Lynette, the 8th seed, 5-7, 7-6, 7-5. And Zhang has upset Navarro, the 2nd seed, 4-4. I've spoken about this the last couple of weeks. Navarro is off to a rough start this season. She ended last season to be rough as well, regressing outside the top 10 just before the season ended. I think it was around 3/4 of the way through the season. Didn't really back up the 25 season as well as her 24 season, which, you know, she became a barrier break in the 25 season, was really playing, 24 season really playing well. Early on, peaked in the 25 season, and then wasn't able to replicate the same results as the 24 season. So we're seeing the 25 or tail end of the 25 season already carry on now this season. So keeping an eye on Navarro from peaking, and she's a perfect example. She peaked young, coming out of college, blasting inside the top 100, top 20, top 10, and now we're seeing a little bit of a regression where she finds that baseline again. But I wouldn't be surprised if Navarro finds that form again, maybe the next couple of months, and finishes the season strong. Good news, though, that she doesn't have as many points to defend as she did from the 24 season into the 25 season, if that makes sense. All right, quarterfinals. Paolini, good win over Bucsa, although Bucsa did push Paolini to 3, and she bageled Paolini in that first set. Love 6, 6-3, 6-3. Buska over Sonmez, 3-4. Look at this. Frech over Buskova. Very good win for Frech there. 6-3, 4-6, 6-3. Zhang over Jimenez Kazakina, 1-3. So we basically have complete upsets now in this 500. The only seeded play is Paolini in the semifinals, and Buska has gotten a win, has upset Paolini in the semifinals, 7-5, 6-4, and Frech over Zhang, 2-6, 6-7, 6-3. And look, even I'm going to call it even a huge upset in the final. Bucsa over Frech, 6-1, 4-6, 6-4. Well done, Bucsa. That is huge news. So that's actually a huge breakthrough for Bucsa. So we will see an uptick in the rankings for Bucsa. Frech as well. I'm sure we'll have a look to see if she's getting closer, or maybe she's cracked back inside the top 30. But great one for Bucsa. She has been tracking, I will say, not as profoundly as some other players, but this is definitely one to put Bucsa on the radar for that type of result. So Bucsa is the champion in Merida, so well done there. All right, let's head on over now to, I believe it is Austin we are at. So the ATX Open there. It is a 250 event. The number one seed is not showing. So number one seed, I'm not too sure who it was, but they did withdraw. And the number 2 seed is Jovic for perspective, which we would not have seen not even 2 months ago. Jovic has really come up on the scene courtesy of that Australian Open. I think it was the quarterfinal result. She did make it there. I want to say semis, but I think it was the quarterfinals there. But also she had a strong end to last season. Okay, Yuan, first round, Yuan over Tramkova in 3-4, 6-7-5, 6-1. Galfi over Andreescu. Hasn't really been able to find her form, Andreescu, on that comeback. Look, it's been a prolonged comeback. I think the last 18 months, roughly. She's been really struggling. I'll say it's a mix of form and having that physical health, because I think she's been managing some niggles along the way as well. 6-3, 5-7, 6-4 to Galfi. Zakharova over Stoyana, 3-6, 6-2, 6-4. Kruger's upset McNally. McNally was the 7 seed. Kruger with the win there, 6-1, 7-6. Masarova over Wang, 3rd seed, another upset, 3-2. Osagui over Manelik, 2-6, 6-3, 6-1. Barakova over Volnyet, 4-5. That is another upset. Townsend over Frutovatova, 4-6, 7-6, 7-5. Good move for Townsend. Look, Townsend's had actually a bit of a regression in the singles rankings lately. But keep in mind that those big wins she had at the US Open, I believe it was last year, wasn't able to replicate that at the Australian Open. So she's had a bit of a regression, but she's still very, very dangerous. So her current singles ranking, I would argue, does not correlate with her singles performance. So it is a little bit of I'll say, not necessarily an anomaly. It's just one of those plays where it's not correlating at this stage. Rakimova over Bondar, the 6 seed, 6-3, 7-5. Selmaktiva over Parks, 6-4, 3-6, 6-3. Javan over Louis, 4-6. And Stearns, 4th seed, got the win over Jones, 3-6, 6-3, 6-2. And we've got Birrell, very good move for Birrell over Masinko, the 8th seed. Love 6, 6-3, 6-4. Dolhide over Sun. Look, part of me wants to call that an upset, but I think that's even. They're 2 and 3. Tomljanovic, win over Venus Williams. I think she got a wild card here, but well done, Tomljanovic, 4-1. But look, good on Venus pushing Arja to 6-4 in that first set. Jovic win over Blinkova, 3-4. So you can see how that top half of the draw really opened up. So many upsets. Bottom half of the draw, relatively tight. Still a number of seeds in play. All right, round of 16, we've got Yuan over Galfi, 3-2. Kruger over Zakharova, 5-3. Masarova over Osagui, 6-3. Townsend over Barakova, 1-4. Salamiteva over Rakimova, 2-5. Stearns over Joanne, Love, and 2. Big win here, Birrell over Dolhide. That's an upset there, 4-2. And here's an upset, Tomljanovic over Jovic, 4-6, 6-4, 6-4. Well done there. That's huge. All right, quarterfinals, and this is surprising. We actually, at the quarterfinal stage, have 1 seed left in play, and that seed is Stearns. All right, quarterfinals, you've got Kruger over Yuan, 7-6, 6-4. Townsend over Masarova, 5-7, 6-2, 6-2. Stearns over Selmaktiva, 6-1, 5-7, 7-5. And Birrell has upset Tomljanovic, 3-3. Very surprising there. Look, Kimberly had a good season last season. I think she got a career high in the 70s. Regressed just outside the top 100, back inside the top 100. And this is, I think, one of her best results of the season. She is actually a Gold Coast local. Once upon a time, at the very beginning of my coaching career, when she was a junior, I was a part of, I'll say, the coaches at the centre, coaching her at the developmental stage. A long, long time ago now. So it's very good to see. So those who are not familiar, Beyond Top 10 Tennis is based in Australia, Southeast Queensland, on the sunny Gold Coast. And we do have a number of players from the Southeast here, from Barty, for example, when I was director of the centre there, when she was up and coming, through to Stoza, although we came up at the same, I will say, age bracket time, thereabouts. So a lot of Australia's top players from them, and we do have a lot of, I'll say, internationals come. Brisbane International, just around the corner, up the road, so an hour away. But that's just a little bit of a snapshot of, I'll say, where we are at. So that's a very good result there. All right, semi-finals, not getting too sidetracked. Townsend over Kruger there, 7-6, 6-3. Very good win for Townsend. That is an upset there. Just goes to show how well Townsend can play when she's having a really good day. Stearns with the win over Birrell there, 6-3. 3-6-6-2. Well done, Kimberly, pushing Stearns to 3 though. Finals, the sole seed there, the 4th seed over Townsend. So Stearns got the win over Townsend, but look how tight this is, 7-6, 7-5, and that tie break, 10-8. Very, very impressive there for Stearns, but also Townsend to push all the way. All right, let's head on over to the rankings here, because we should see, I will say, some good results here. Some players who have had that uptick, especially with those results of the past week. All right, starting at 100, and it looks like, I'm just going to have a look just outside the top 100. Yeah, so Vekic is back 3. She's at 103. Curious there. I'm just going to have a peek outside. So Vidosa's back 21. So she's bumped outside the top 100 at 106. Arango's back 49 places to 108. Big hits there. Masarova's up 10 to 110. Don't normally look outside the top 100, but I'm just having a peek. Pavlyuchenkova back to at 114. That's surprising as well. Former, obviously, top 10, well, almost top 10, consistent top 20 player for some time. Dolheid's at 127. I'm just having a look to see how far back some players have bounced, but I'm not going to go too far back. Polonina Kudermetova, she was top 50. She's at 147. We haven't had a look this far back all season, to be fair. So just seeing some of the regressions where some players could be hovering. Not that many. Look, Andreescu, she's actually at 165, which means she's had to do a lot of qualifying. There we go. That's the player I was looking for as a ranker. She's at 173. I don't actually think she's been playing this season, in all fairness. Haven't seen her name pop up so far. But that is, that's rounding out, I think, the top 200, I'll say. Keeping in mind some of those players obviously are out of action. That's why their rankings have dipped so, severely. All right, so at 100, we have up 10 places, Masarova. Actually, no, that's 110, my apologies. At 100, Sun. So Lulu Sun, she's back 2 places at 100. 18 months ago, roughly, I think her career high was just inside the top 50. All right, Jimenez Kazakina, because of the last week, she has had a 25-point progression to 97 in the world. So welcome to the top 100, Jimenez Kazakina. All right, looking at the big movers, we've got Blinkova back 10 to 94. Jones is a 20-point progression at 93. Rakhimova's up 4 to 88. Townsend back inside the top 100 for singles, 32-point progression to 87 in the world. Tomljanovic despite her good result, really good result the past week. She's had 11-point regression to 85. Kruger's up 21 to 82 in the world. That's a good jump there. Uchijama's 27-point progression to 77 in the world. Segmativa's up 5 to 71. Birrell, I think this is her new career high, 11 places to 69 in the world. That's really great to see for Kimberly. I don't believe she's cracked the top 70 before, so very good result there. Bolter's slowly clawing her way back up 5 to 64 in the world. Zhang, so Shui Zhang's up 24 to 62 in the world. A lot of like small movement going on. Ruzik's up 6 to 57. Krejcikova's up 3 to 53. Strom's got 3 as well to 52. Kessler's back 11 to 51. Stearns with that title up 14 places to 48 in the world, although I do believe Stearns has been ranked higher previously. Look, we've got a lot of players, small movement, little bumps here. Frech, there we go, up 21 places to 36 in the world. Boskova's up 1 to 33. Look, Iala, she's clawed her way back, and we spoke about this last week. Not claw, but she's really made an inroad. This time last year was when she really rocketed onto the scene with that win over Swiatek. But she's basically unheard of prior, and she's sitting at 32. All right, Bucsa, with that result, that title this week, she's up 32 places to 31 in the world. Career high. That is huge. Let's see how she can back it up in the March swing. That'll be really interesting to see. Look, Navarro, she's back 5 places to 25 in the world. That's essentially her lowest ranking, I believe, in, I want to say about 18 months. But look, I'm sure all going well, she gets a good run, a couple of wins under her belt in the March swing. She should be able to bounce back inside the top 20, but time will tell. All right, little movements, just one bumps here and there inside the top 20. Otherwise, all players are the same, and top 10 is the same, so no differences there. All right, that is the WTA Tour this week. So we've got the big events now. We switch on over to the ATP Tour. We do have Dubai and Mexico. So keep in mind, Dubai is Dubai is the 500 event. I thought for some reason it was going to be a 1,000 event, but that was incorrect. Acapulco is also a 500. I mixed that up because Dubai is a 1,000 for the WTA Tour, not the case for the ATP Tour. So that's an oopsies that I did make earlier on, but I would still stand by why we're seeing the difference in the tours, although the week before was Doha in the men's, that was the 1,000 event. So that's important to share. No, it was the 500. That is a bit of an oops there from my end. Just having a quick look back our last couple of episodes. And there's a lot of 500, so I'm not too sure what's happening on the ATP Tour and the schedule from that perspective. That is a little bit odd from that perspective. Yeah. All right, so we will kick off Dubai being the 500 and then follow it with Acapulco. All right, number 1 seeds here. We've got Ugur Elisame is the number 1 seed. And then second seed is Bublik. For perspective, recall last week's episode was when Sinner and Alcaraz were in action. So you'll see a pattern there, how the top 2 seeds or a number of the top players take the week off before Indian Wells, for example, on both tours, which I was hinting at, or I did directly insinuate at the beginning of today's episode. All right, so the results here, first round, Ugur Elisame over Zhang, who's still on a protected ranking. He must have had some type of injury. I'm just not aware what type it was, but he's on his comeback trail. 6-3, 7-6-2 Felix there. Tiebreak there was 7-4. Mapeshi Pericard over Uchijari, 7-6, 6-7, 7-6. Wow. Look, Mapeshi Pericard had to qualify. Uchijari is a wild card. What a huge result for both players. But look, well done to Mapeshi Pericard to getting through. Carino Busta qualifies. Upset Shapovalov, 2-4. Carino Busta, though, former, I'll say definitely top 20 player. I think he was top 10 for a small period of time, but top 20 he did reach. But it just goes to show he's still sticking around. All right, Lehecka, a good win over Nardi. Nardi, lucky loser there, 4-6, 6-4, 6-2. Medvedev, a good win over Shang, 1-3. Wawrinka over Hassan, 5-3. Brooksby over Bergs, 3-4. Kakanakov, good win over Shevchenko, 7-6, 6-2, 6-3. Rublev over Roya, 3-4. Humbert, solid win over Tsitsipas there, 6-4, 7-5. Tsitsipas had a bit of work to do to get that consistency back under his belt, or at least to get a seed next to his name again. Rinderknech over Madison, 3-6, 6-3, 6-4. Draper, I think this is Draper's first match back, or very close to, since being sidelined, but look, good win here. Over Hales, had to qualify first round, 7-6, 6-3. Menzik over Hercax, rough for Hercax, because he's also on his comeback trail after obviously that injury last season. 6-4, 7-6, 9-7 tiebreak to Menzik. Poprin, good win for Poprin here over Mazarak, 3-6, 6-3, 7-5. Griekspoor over Vertainen, 3-4. And Bublik with a win over Struff, lucky loser there, 3-4. All right, round of 16. No really big upsets so far. We've got Ogor Elisame over Mapeshi Pericard, 4-4. What I like about this is that we know there was a break of serve, whereas so many players, Mapeshi Pericard, huge serve, hugely consistent it has been, but it's the top players that really can find those breaks like Felix has done. And it's really good to see. You see that when Mapeshi Pericard's serve is on, if a top player's baseline game is not on, it's very hard to break. So that's just, I think, an interesting perspective. Lehecka over Carino Busta, 7-6, 6-4. Medvedev over Wawrinka, 2-3. Here's an upset here. Brooksby over Kakanakov, the 7th seed, 7-6, 8-6, 6-4. Rublev over Humbert, 6-4, 6-7, 6-3. I really like how Rublev's playing lately. I feel like he's had a better attitude the last, I'm going to say 6 to 8 months on court. Despite his rankings regression, he has actually been correlating more so with his ranking than previously, ironically, but I think that's a very positive result for him. Rinderknech has upset Draper 4C, but not so much upsetting considering, I think it could have been his second match back, but a good result nonetheless, because look, 7-5, 6-7, 6-4. I think that would have been a really good test for Draper's match fitness, but just for him to test his body as well. Menzik over Poprin, 3-2. And Griekspoor upset Bublik in the round of 16, 6-3, 7-6, 7-4 in that tiebreak, opening up that bottom half of the draw. All right, quarterfinals, Ogor Elisame over Lehecka, 6-3, 7-6. Really like how Felix has been playing the last 12 months. Really good win there. Medvedev over Brooksby, 2-1. Medvedev, he's backing up, I think, the results. He's actually been, I'm going to say the last month has been really good for Medvedev. Some of the best results, I think, or consistently he's been playing in a while. So good to see him patching that back together. Rublev over Rinderknech, 2-4. And Griekspoor's upset Menzik, 6-3, 3-6, 6-2, which means for the semi-finals, we do have some of the top seeds. We've got Felix, number 1 seed, Medvedev, 3rd seed, and Rublev, 5th seed. And that's it, plus Griekspoor. So semi-finals, how's this? We've got upsets on both sides. Medvedev over Ogor Elisame, 4-2. And Griekspoor over Rublev, 7-5, 7-6 for the upset. Unfortunately, as far as the finals concerned, was Medvedev and Griekspoor. And Griekspoor had to retire. So that did not go ahead. So Medvedev did get that win. And I do believe it happened, or the final was held when airspace closures were happening in the Middle East. So obviously a little bit of a crossover there with global affairs. And I do believe the players have been able to get out. I do believe, but we will find that out when we have a peek at Indian Wells next week. We won't go over there today. We're holding off for next episode because it is a jam-packed event, and I hope you're excited because I'm excited because we are going to learn a lot about back-to-back 1,000 events in the March swing. It is the biggest, I will say, milestone since the Australian Open, so I'm looking forward to that. All right, so Medvedev's got the win here in Dubai. Let's head on over to Acapulco. So it's also a 500 event. Also with Medvedev's win, he should be nudging back inside the top 10 or being very, very close. We will get there shortly after Acapulco. All right, Zverev is the number 1 seed here, and de Minaur is the 2nd seed. All right, let's kick things off. Zverev over Mute, 2 and 4. Kekmanovic over Skulke, 2 and 2. Adames upset Dimitrov, 3 and 3. Look, love seeing Dimitrov play. He is on that comeback trail. I'm really curious to see if he pushes in back inside, I'll say top 20. This season, not too sure if he will get back inside the top 10. Look, if he does get back inside the top 10, that will be huge. But I definitely think he's still capable of cracking back inside the top 30, top 25 at least. All right, Jodar's upset Norrie, 7th seed there, 3 and 2. Wu has upset Rudd, 3rd seed, 7-6, 7-6, 7-2 and 7-1, the tie breaks respectively. Shimon Bucco over Manarino, 3 and 4. That's an upset. Shimon Bucco is a qualifier. Shavinka over Duckworth, 4 and 1. Cobolli over Pacheco Mendes, 7-6, 7-6. Both tie breaks were 7-3. Tiafoe over Borges, 4 and 4. Kokovic over Walton, 7-6, 7-6. A lot of tie breaks going on. That was 1 and 3. Bellucci over Hajakta, 6 and 3. Davidovich Fekina over Altamar, 5 and 3. You got Vachereau, the 6th seed, with a win over Wong, 4-6, 6-3, 6-2. Monfils over Zamir, 4 and 6. Nakashima over Yamur, 3 and 4. And the biggest first round upset. This is actually really surprising. I can't remember the last time de Minaur fell in the first round. Gibson, a qualifier, has upset de Minaur 6-1, 6-7. That was 4-7. 7-6, 7-4. That is tight. So Gibson obviously came out of the blocks firing. Alex not able to find that groove and really knuckled down those next 2 sets back-to-back tie breaks. Obviously, Gibson looked like he almost, did not, but almost could have had a match point in that second set. Alex clawed his way back, but Gibson too good, really stayed with him. That really highlights potentially Gibson's one to watch this season. Have not heard of Gibson, nothing more, but when you see a player like that have a really good upset, that sets, I think, some bells ringing. Let's see what Gibson brings this season. All right, round of 16, second round of 16, depending how you want to look at it. And next big upset, look at this. Kekmanovic has upset the number 1 seed Zverev, 6-3, 6-7. That was 3-7 tie break, then 7-6, 7-4. Wow, so similar, I'll say. Not quite, but scoreline to de Minaur in that first round. Zverev's out in the second round, really opening up the draw now with the top 2 seeds out. Adame over Jodar, 6-2, 4-6, 6-1. Wu over Shimon Bucco, 3 and 6. Cobolli over Shavinka, 4 and 4. Tiafoe over Kokovic, 6-4, 3-6, 7-6. Bellucci over Davidovich Fekina, that's an upset, 3 and 3. Vachereau over Monfils, 3 and 3. Nakashima over Gibson, so 4 and 4. So Gibson wasn't able to, I will say, maintain that peak or how well he was playing against de Minaur. All right, quarterfinals, and we have 3 seeds. Cobolli, the 5th seed, Tiafoe, the 8th seed, and Vachereau, the 6th seed. So let's see how this plays out. Kekmanovic over Adame, 3 and 3. Cobolli over Wu, 7-6, 6-1. Tiafoe over Bellucci, 3 and 4. And Nakashima upsets Vachereau, 2-6, 6-2, 6-3. So 2 seeds left, semi-finals. So Cobolli and Tiafoe, 5 and 8 respectively. You got Cobolli over Kekmanovic, 7-6. That was 7-5, 3-6, 6-4. Then Tiafoe over Nakashima, 3-6, 7-6, 8-6 there, 6-4. So both seeds through to the final, and the seeds have played out. So Cobolli, 5th seed over Tiafoe, 8th seed, 7-6, 7-4, 6-4. Well done to Cobolli, I believe, especially because it is a 500, that will give Cobolli a new career high. Let's find out. But also great to see Tiafoe back in a final. But look, great news for both players. So over to the rankings now. And so we should see an uptick for both players, right? But let's start at the top 100. So Taberner's back 3, setting at 100. All right, Kipson, because of his result, that first round win over Alex, he's entered the top 100. Up 8 points to 95 in the world. Bellucci's up 16 to 94. Bautista, good. He's actually back 8 to 93 in the world. Wawrinka's up 7 to 92 in the world. A lot of movement here, but small ones. I'll try to focus primarily on the big jumps that we're seeing. Spiritzi, he's back 11 to 78 in the world. Colinon's back 6 to 77. Navarre is up 4 to 75 in the world. Hercax, look, he's up 2 to 71, but so he's hovering there. Garon's back 7, 69. Ugo Carabelli, 8-point progression, 67. Berrettini, a 9-point regression to 66. Halfman's up 16 to 65 in the world. Biggest jump here is Kekinovic, a 26-point progression to 58 in the world. That's huge. I think that's the biggest jump we're going to see this week. That's right. Selix is back 6 to 51. Macaque, big hit there, 18-point regression to 50. He was, I want to say, top 25. Maybe he got into the top 20, but I'll say 25 to be safe. Maybe it was earlier this season or last season, so a bit of a hit there. Mannering is up 3 to 48. Madizan's up 4 to 46. Poppins are up 2 to 45. Tsitsipas has taken a bit of a hit. 13-point regression to 43 in the world. Dimitrov's up 2 to 42. Brooksby's up 8 to 41. A lot of movement otherwise. Diallo, keeping a track on him this season, is up 3 to 38 in the world. Quarter up 3 to 36. Simmel with Fonseca's up to 35. And Humbert, 34. A lot of movement there. Phils is back to 32, so up 2 there. All right, top 30. Norrie's back 3 to 29. Ridgenek's up 3 to 28. Teen's back 4 to 27. Look at this. Paul's actually back 2 to 24. Curious to see how Paul does in the March swing. See if he's back inside the top 20, pushes back into the top 15, or maybe top 10. Tiafoe is up 6 to 22. Top 20, Davidovich Fokina has taken a little bit of a hit, back 5 to 19 in the world. Cobolli's up 5 to 15 in the world. New career high, I believe, for Cobolli. That's great news there. And look, despite Draper, I will say his early exit, he's actually up 1 to 14. Rudd's back 1 to 13. Menzik is up 1 to 12. Medvedev, however, is still outside. So he's actually still at 11, although closing the gap between himself and Bublik now is roughly, it's actually only what we got, 45 points between the two. Although Bublik and Felix, so Felix is back 1 to 9, Shelton's up 1 to 8, but there is a 500-point gap, roughly a little bit more between, say, Bublik and Ugo Elisame. All other players inside the top 10 have remained the same, so there's no movement there. But that's it. So I'm looking forward to, and I hope you're looking forward to, the March swing as well, because Indian Wells, look, the draw's already out. And it is, well, currently as we're going live, is underway, but I'm going to hold that off for our next episode so I can come back to you with the roundup on the earlier results, and we will take it from there. So look, thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much for listening. To grab a copy of any one of my 14 books, you can find them on AIM International or Amazon, so irrespective where you are based in the world. For any comments or questions, head to AIM International or Topic Thread, or leave comments directly on YouTube or Spotify. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, catch up on our blogs, or sign up to my newsletter, head to AIM International, and remember to check out Pink Octopus Books to Spruik. And look, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and do all of the above. Beyond Top 10 Tennis exists for you, so please consider sharing us with those you know near and far. And look, if you're serious about heading towards the top 10, or want to know what you're missing to secure that maiden Grand Slam or more, don't be shy. Come and say hi. All right, on that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.